Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another question period with David Crayden. All the answers to question period. Before we start today, I wanted to introduce a couple of stories. Actually, one story that's been backtracked on by the Liberals, Steven Guilbeault in particular. Yesterday, we learned, actually, this was from Monday, from the Montreal Gazette, where Environment and Climate Change Minister Steven Guilbeault announced that our government has made the decision to stop investing in new road infrastructure. Of course, we will continue to be there for cities, provinces, and territories to maintain the existing network, but there will be no more envelopes from the federal government to enlarge the road network. The analysis we have done is that the network is perfectly adequate to respond to the needs we have. And thanks to a mix of investment in active and public transit and in territorial planning and densification, excuse me, we can very well achieve our goals of economic, social, and human development without more enlargement of the road network. Now, this is the insanity. From Doug Ford read this and said, "I'm gobsmacked." The federal minister said they won't invest in new roads or highways. And Ford said, "Well, we will in Ontario." Now, how crazy is this? It's insane. We're all supposed to what? Jog, bike to work, even if you happen to live in the rural part of Canada or outside of the major city. I mean, where I am, I couldn't get to Ottawa on foot or bike every day. It's absolutely insane. So we have a reversal on this. Yes, we have a reversal on this today, an attempt to backtrack. But what it is, it's extreme damage control. What does he say? Guilbeault says, "Well, I really didn't mean all roads, just a large road project, specifically one in Quebec." And it's not even clear from his comments whether he means all large projects or just the one large project in Quebec. Clearly, Guilbeault spoke out of turn, but he spoke the actual Liberal Party policy. Somebody took him aside last night before he backtracked with this damage control story this morning to tell him, "Hey, I don't think that's going to fly." Whoever's really leading the Liberal Party, I don't know if it's the president of the Liberal Party or the corporate donors behind that party. God knows what they're still doing with the party. But somebody got to Guilbeault last night and said, "Hey, you better issue a retraction of some sort because this just ain't going to fly with most Canadians who think this is nuts." We already think Guilbeault is mad. We think he's crazy. He comes out with the nuttiest prospects. But let's listen to him here.
2035. This includes the interim goals along the way, beginning with 20% of all new vehicle sales be EVs by 2026. It ensures Canadians have access to our fair share of the global supply of these vehicles. Also help Canadians with the cost of living. Get on board. That would be my message.
There will be limitations on how much natural gas you can use.
Yes, absolutely. That's what fighting climate change looks like. Limiting the amount of fossil fuels we're using. We're doing that in the transportation sector. We're doing that in the cement sector. We're doing that in the steel and aluminum sector. We're also doing it in the electricity sector, and we're doing it in the oil and gas sector.
Okay, you've heard this clip from Madman Guilbeault before. Here he is saying we're going to phase out the combustion engine, and you think you're going to have fossil fuels to heat your home or keep the lights going? No, we're even going to phase out electricity because that's no good either. So this is the guy who came up with these policies, and you know that he thought he was speaking truth the other night when he said we're not going to build roads either because we don't need roads anymore because we're not going to have enough cars. And he actually made the absurd and insane suggestion that if we build more roads, it's going to create more congestion on the highway. Where have you ever heard anybody come up with that kind of synopsis or that kind of analysis? Oh, it's the vacuous head of Steven Guilbeault. This man is dangerous. He's not just a proud socialist, he is a Marxist. And he's dragging Canada down a Marxist path. Somebody intervened because they know Canadians aren't quite ready for a federal government that doesn't want you to have a road to drive your car on. Good God. They have the nerve to say the Conservatives are bringing the country to the Stone Age. The Liberals clearly have the Stone Age in their sights. And this is what Guilbeault is fighting for, a new Stone Age. As I've said 100 times, Canada produces so little of the global greenhouse gas emissions that we could all live in caves and it wouldn't make any difference to the global carbon footprint they're so obsessed with. But this man this is nuts. I encourage you again, read this story from February 12th in Montreal Gazette. You can find it easily on the internet today and see what this guy says. He thought he was just telling you what Liberal Party policy was, what Trudeau government policy was. And he probably was. But the insiders got to him, said, not yet, Stevie, not yet. You can't go public with this yet. People already think you're beyond the pale. You're a little bit unhinged. And he is. So with that introduction, let's see if this comes up in question period today. Let's see if Justy Boy is present, if he stays for more than 4 minutes, and what is actually going on with roads in Canada. Because thank God the provinces are responsible for roads, but at least 20 to 30% of the infrastructure funds for those roads are supplied by the federal government. So take that away, and guess what? The provinces are going to have to fill that gap somehow. And meanwhile, the federal government's going to be blowing your money on crazy green energy projects. So Chrystia Freeland goes to the World Economic Forum and says Canada is on a new industrial path. It's on a path to destroy industry, to destroy energy, to create an economy that is without any foundation or structure. That's what the Liberals are up to. So thanks for listening so far. We're going to join question period now. The member statements are still going on, but the leader of the official opposition should be up very shortly with the first question. And I will be watching with you. Thanks so much.
Delicious symbol of warmth that is Quebec-made maple syrup. Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's once again time for families, friends, and visitors to take part in the maple harvest, a ritual as sweet as the syrup it celebrates. It's a celebration of Quebec gastronomy, where traditional dishes mingle with the taste of fresh maple syrup, a harvest that dates back to the Indigenous peoples and is part of Quebec's rich heritage and culture.
Pancakes, your crepes, or pretty much anything your heart fancies in fresh maple syrup at home or visiting our local cabana souks, I invite all Vaudois Langeois to enjoy the delicious gift of spring that the maple harvest brings. Merci.
The honourable member from Vancouver East.
On every Valentine's Day since 1992, led by Indigenous matriarchs, 2S LGBTQ+, and family members in the downtown East Side, the community took to the streets to honor and grieve for the loss of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and the gender diverse. Each year, as we march, the drumming unite a heartbeat, eagles circle in the sky. Their spirit lived within us. This act of remembrance is an expression of love, respect, and solidarity for families and survivors. Our community stand united in the call for justice. We demand full
we got to see if
implementation
Justin
of
Trudeau
all
is in the House today. He always should be on Wednesdays.
We demand
But will
action
he stay
and not
beyond
just
his
empty
usual
words. We
4 to
demand
5 minute
accountability
mark?
and measurable
Will he flee
progress.
with
CBC
after the first
reported that
tough
as of
question?
June 2023,
Reduces
only
him
2 of the
to the verge of
231
tears?
calls for justice have been completed, and
We'll
more than
see.
half have not even been started. This is unconscionable. In honor of Indigenous...
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. On January 27th, at the Saint Scholastique Church, over 200 people paid their last respects to Ms. Louise Léonard, who passed away at the age of 79. She was the wife of my friend, Denis Lauzon, founder of Mirabel's Agricultural Centre. Denis had a very special way of introducing himself to people. For nearly 60 years, he was the self-proclaimed best married man in Saint Scholastique, and with good reason. He and Louise had a touching complicity, and I was welcomed like a son in their home. As a teacher, Louise Léonard contributed to the development of hundreds of young people who crossed her path. She was proud and involved in her community and the world. Like many village elders, Louise longed to grow old at her husband's side at the new seniors' residence in Saint Scholastique, peacefully with her loved ones. And as you stroll down the hill today, you may come across Denis, and if you look up to the sky, you'll see Louise, her eyes full of kindness, watching over him and all of us, as she always has. Bon voyage, Louise.
Member from Calgary Midnapore.
After 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, the RCMP is once again investigating a Liberal deal. 2 of the contractors involved in the creation of the ArriveCan app are already being investigated for potentially criminal acts used to obtain contracts. But that investigation won't even scratch the surface of everything that was hidden from Canadians. GC Strategies, an IT firm of 2 people that did no actual IT work, was paid over $19 million just to find people to build this $60 million app. Not to mention, they also rigged the bidding process for a $25 million contract that only they could win. And it doesn't stop there. Reports are out this morning revealing that this 2-person headhunting firm has gotten as much as $250 million taxpayer dollars since 2015. This RCMP investigation needs to be expanded to understand what really happened in the building of this app and who is responsible
know exactly what happened with this Arrive scam, because it's outrageous that Trudeau's not taking any responsibility.
From Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, February 24th will mark 2 years since the beginning of Russia's further brutal invasion of Ukraine. Our government has said that Canada will stand with the Ukrainian people until they win, that victory is the only option. Victory is the only option because Ukraine's
this guy is always on his feet, telling us to give more money to this bloody war in Ukraine.
If Russia wins,
the war is over, Ivan. The war is over. Ukraine has lost the war. The government is on the verge of toppling. It's corrupt. Zelensky's a clown, an international clown in combat fatigue.
In the future,
and he's corrupt as hell.
And that is one of the reasons that
and
Canada
no more
has been
money
a
to Ukraine
in supporting Ukraine. Unfortunately, Conservatives continue to vote against support for Ukraine, against Canada's national security. On this 2-year anniversary, I urge MPs throughout this House to support and vote in favor of the support needed to ensure Ukraine's victory, because victory is the only option to our security, to our economy.
Well, I'm sorry, you're not going to have your only option, buddy. Yeah. By the way, folks, please watch my interview with Neil Oliver. Part 1 aired yesterday, Part 2 today. It was a labor of love to talk to this man. And I know so many of you enjoy his own podcast. Here we go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The scandal.
The Prime Minister's Arrive scam scandal is broadening. Today, we learned from Mr. Bellavance that one company alone received $250 million. A company with 4 employees. Their headquarters is in the basement of a cottage. They're an IT company that doesn't do any IT work. Mr. Speaker, what the heck? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh, he's there.
Clearly, this happened during the pandemic, and we were doing everything we could to help Canadians get by. But even in an unprecedented situation, the rules have to be followed. And those who didn't follow the rules will have to face the consequences.
Did you follow the rules?
We warmly welcome the Auditor General's recommendations, and that's why the authorities involved are doing their job. Yes, Canadians should get the truth, and we expect the investigators to do their job. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, to quote from GC Strategy's website, they boast that they are the Ottawa company that has had the fastest growth. And that's a quote. So this Prime Minister, after 8 years, gave contracts to a company with 4 employees that works in IT but doesn't do any IT work and got millions in contracts. The first contract was entered into 3 weeks after the Prime Minister took office. Why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Like the Auditor General, Canadians have questions about whether or not the rules were followed and how this kind of company was able to get all those contracts. That's a question we expect the authorities to find the answers to and investigate appropriately, so that we know who and how these processes were followed and what rules were broken. It's very important to make sure that taxpayer money was spent appropriately. And in this situation, we all have serious questions that need answers.
Well, Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister's Arrive scam is now flailing out of control. Today, revelations from a Joël Denis Bellevance that one Arrive scan company received $250 million in contracts. Let's get this straight. It's a company with 4 employees, headquartered in the basement of a tiny cottage. They got IT contracts, even though they admit they do no IT work. $250 million. WTF.
Here, here.
WTF. This is probably the worst mismanaged Liberal boondoggle I've ever experienced.
I'm going to ask.
I guess that
dangerously close to crossing the line in terms of what is considered parliamentary language.
Crossing the line, are we, Greg?
That is an abbreviation which is commonly used with language, which is commonly understood not to be parliamentary. I'm going to ask the honourable opposition leader, please, to withdraw that comment.
Oh, go to hell, Fergus.
To use parliamentary language, please.
Oh, go to hell.
Where's
So the highlight of the day.
funds?
That is a classic moment. I hope we all witness that. Where's the fun?
I appreciate that the Leader of the Opposition had clarified that comment. I'm going to ask all members to not use the acronym, because the acronym in the minds of Canadians clearly would be considered unparliamentary language, and to use the full words. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, during the time of pandemic, the government rightly did everything it could to keep Canadians safe and keep them protected. But of course, even in the most trying times, perhaps especially in the most trying times, all the rules need to be followed. In this case, the Auditor General has highlighted some very concerning questions that need to be answered, and that's why we're expecting and supporting all relevant authorities to follow up on these irregular contracting and this perhaps breaking of the rules. This is an important issue, and that's why we're taking it seriously, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, you're taking it real seriously. You won't even admit you had anything to do with it. Well, you saw a real moment of history there, folks. That was interesting, to say the least. Now we know that WTF has two meanings. What is going on here? Why have they shut the sound off? Well, Fergus is having a little panic attack. Yeah, Fergus is having a panic attack in the background there, folks. It's okay, Fergus. You can turn the sound on again. Somebody must have swore, and he that's just so unparliamentary. Seeing the widescreen shot of the house. This is oh.
Colleagues.
They keep muting the mic, Earl, because the speaker does it all the time when he doesn't want you to hear heckling or language he thinks is unparliamentary or anti-liberal. Hi, John. How are you? Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you for filling me in, Karen. So they have some gallery problems.
In light of the disruption that we had, we are going to take a 2-minute break to allow things to calm down, and then we will come back for the questions and answers.
All right, we're just going to linger here for a while, folks. Thank you for your patience. This was just getting good, wasn't it? This is the best question period I've seen in, my God, months. Easily. And I think Pierre Poilievre will go down in history today for his comeback on the unparliamentary language of WTF. Okay, I can say, yes, we all know it means what the fuck. I don't use language like that too much on this broadcast. But to come back and for Poilievre not to retract that and to come back with that statement saying that WTF really means where is the funds? I mean, that's a moment of brilliance you don't often see, not only in question period, in the House of Commons, or from any politician these days, because most politicians are pretty dense and they're not very imaginative. They're not very creative. And they come up with a lot of bullshit, but they don't come up with really smart remarks like that. Now that was good. I'm glad we all saw that. So we will be back in a minute. I'm just going to keep on here. Oh, Brad. Yes, Brad says, David, your podcast is just great. Say hi to Clayton and Natalie next time you see them. Yes, I have a piece up this week on Redacted that I recorded for Clayton last week. They are enjoying Carnival this week with their children. So that's why they're not broadcasting every day live. But of course, they got lots of material going up every day. And Clayton is a really, really nice guy and a wonderful journalist. And what I like about Clayton and Natalie is that they're not just independent, honest and scrupulous. They have done their time in the mainstream media.
Take your seats.
And okay, we're back here. So I hope I filled the time adequately here for you.
Take your seats.
This is just so bizarre.
We're going to resume the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All right, he's back.
So let's recap. A company that had never before received contracts from the federal government started getting an avalanche of contracts just 3 weeks after this prime minister took office. The company, in fact, got $250 million for IT, even though it admits it doesn't do IT. It has 4 employees and has a headquarters in the basement of a cottage. Can the prime minister explain why this suspicious company started getting these contracts exactly 21 days after he took office?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's obviously an unacceptable situation, which is why the relevant authorities are fully investigating exactly what went on here, particularly highlighted by the Auditor General's recent report. This is an issue we need to continue to understand and make sure that the rules are being followed, make sure that our procurement practices
are you following the rules, Justy Boy?
Respectful of taxpayer
money. Are you taking responsibility for any of it? No.
Leader of the opposition.
Are you apologizing?
Proof the
no.
prime minister is not worth the cost or the corruption after 8 years of doubling housing costs.
He's not worth the time of day,
the carbon tax, sending 2 million people to food banks. He somehow found $250 million for this one company, which boasts on its website that it is now Ottawa's fastest growing company. No doubt about that when they're having their faces stuffed with tax dollars by this prime minister. Why is it that when Canadians are starving in food bank lines, the Prime Minister finds $250 million for his friends?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Obviously, the relevant authorities need to follow up on this and get to the bottom of exactly how this unacceptable situation happened. In the meantime, on this side
now
of
it's
the house,
unacceptable
we're
at
going to
least.
continue to focus on making life more affordable for Canadians. For example, attracting thousands of healthcare workers by increasing by 50% student loan forgiveness for rural doctors and nurses, by fast-tracking the construction of more than 51,000 homes, by finalizing the housing accelerator agreements
change
with
the
over
channel.
60 small and rural communities.
Change the subject,
while the
boy.
Conservative Party continues to block these initiatives, we're going to continue to step up for Canadians.
And you're going to continue to feed your friends. Yes. Feeding frenzy for the friends of the Liberal Party. Oh, Mr. Euthanasia gets up now.
All Quebecers and Canadians should know that the government has an unfortunate habit of finding scapegoats for the mistakes they've made over the past 8 years.
Blah, 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 blah.
My first question
do
is
I
quite
think Pierre would
straightforward.
scrap the Green Deal?
Who
Yes,
is
I do.
responsible?
I think he hates it as much as we all do.
Is Arrive Can.
And I don't give Pierre blanket support.
Mr. Speaker,
but I gave him support where I think he deserves it, and I think he's going to give you a credible environmental energy policy that's not going to deconstruct the country.
Every way possible to protect Canadians' health and safety, but even in times as difficult as that, we have clear rules that have to be followed around contracting and procurement, and we expect the investigators and the responsible authorities to do their job so that we can find out exactly how this unacceptable situation occurred.
So the Bloc finally woke up to the fact that there's a scandal here.
For clarity,
they stopped looking at their navel for long enough to see some reality.
That the person responsible for everything and all the corrective measures that will be needed is the Prime Minister of Canada. What has he put in place in terms of an investigation? For example, are contracts going to be suspended to this company starting back in November? Will they get any more contracts with the government? They were getting contracts before. So what kind of investigation is going to be conducted, and who's going to conduct it, and how long, what's the time frame? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He must have discovered Quebec was somehow affected by this.
Mr. Speaker, once we began to see that there were some irregularities or some rules that weren't followed by the public service, internal processes within the public service were triggered. And at the same time, we know that other authorities, including the police, have gotten involved. And we expect
the police have gotten involved,
to be done to ensure that all the rules were followed, and if not, that there are consequences as appropriate.
So we learned that the ArriveCan scandal goes even deeper. The Liberals gave $250 million.
Now
to
they're
GC
alive
Strategies.
to it. Oh,
Let's talk about
Jugmeat,
what that $60
you're upset
million
about this now.
for ArriveCan could have bought.
Why? Because you didn't get the 250?
Affordable homes. 800 nurses hired.
I swear, does this guy own another
this
suit?
money on an app that doesn't work and no one uses. How does the Prime Minister look Canadians in the eyes with all this waste?
How do you look anybody in the eyes when you prop him up?
Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, Canadians' lives were at risk, and we, quite rightly as a government, reached out to all the possible tools to keep Canadians safe. And indeed, the pandemic was less deadly and less harmful to our economy in Canada than it was in most, if not all, of our peer countries. But at the same time, even as we were innovating and trying to do everything we could to keep Canadians safe, the rules needed to be followed. And it is obvious that in this case, the rules they don't look like they were followed, and that's
don't look like they were followed.
There are investigations ongoing.
Guys, stumbling and fumbling fool.
The honourable member for Burnaby
Keep
South.
at him, hammer the.
Flagrantly violated, and millions of dollars were wasted.
Well, you're in it too, Jugmeat.
The Liberals
take responsibility. You propped them up.
$258 million to GC Strategies. That includes spending $60 million on an app that doesn't work. With $60 million, 125 affordable housing units could have been built. How can the Prime Minister look Canadians in the eyes after wasting so much money?
This is astounding.
Mr.
The
Speaker,
price has gone up and up
during the
and up.
pandemic, as a government, we looked for every way possible to keep Canadians safe and healthy. That was our overarching goal. And we did better than most other countries similar to us.
What, in locking people up?
At the same time, we still expected and should require that all rules be followed. Apparently, that wasn't the case. And that is why follow-ups are being done and investigation is being done. We're going to find out who's responsible, and there will be consequences.
How about you being responsible for a change? Lackluster excuse.
The question was, how can the Prime Minister waste millions of dollars on a Arrive scam when Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, or house themselves? The answer is because the NDP keeps that Prime Minister in power. That's and
exactly.
Consistently in committee to cover up the scandal and shut down investigations. This was supposed to cost, this app was supposed to cost 80 grand, said the Prime Minister. Now it's at least 60 million, but we don't know for sure because of missing documents. What is the full and final cost of Arrive scam?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've addressed these questions, but I will highlight that part of the Conservatives' attacks on this situation is because they deeply deplore all the measures we put in to keep Canadians safe during the pandemic. We remember how they gave in to conspiracy theories, spreading anti-vaxxer conspiracies, standing against measures that we needed to put forward to keep Canadians safe. Yes, as we did all those things, we made sure that rules were followed.
You don't even believe in what you're spouting, you half-wit. Your vaccine was useless. It didn't work.
What was the full and final cost of the app?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that is among the questions that there are direct follow-ups, investigations ongoing right now, both internal and external, to ensure that as rules were evidently broken, there are consequences, there is an accountability for this. There's no doubt that there are serious challenges around procurement and the public service that were evident at that time. We need to make sure that is fixed. We need to move forward in a way that takes better responsibility for the kinds of challenges that we saw in this situation.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
How much?
How much?
Prime Minister.
Shortest question I've ever heard in budgetary.
During the pandemic, we were there to invest, to protect Canadians and keep their lives safe, despite the objections and the conspiracy theorism of the Conservative Party.
What conspiracy theories? That your vaccine was effective?
Different ways. But even as we did, we expected and we continue to expect that rules around procurement be followed by the public service. It is obvious that that was not the case here. That is why there are ongoing investigations, there will be consequences, and there will be changes made to the public services systems.
The only consequence I want to see is you lose your job, Trudeau. That's the primary consequence.
The Prime Minister said Arrive Can would cost $80,000. According to the Auditor General, it cost at minimum $60 million, 750 times more. But we still don't know because the records weren't kept properly. But the Prime Minister has access to all documents in his government. So the question is, how much did the app cost? How much? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As I said, there are investigations underway trying to find out exactly what happened and who benefited and what the consequences should be. This is very important. But remember that at the same time, everything we did was to protect Canadians at that time. And
everything you did was to endanger Canadians.
Terrible crisis, that the rules would be followed. And obviously they appear not to have been followed. So that's why there's an investigation to shed full light on the situation. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Combien?
How much?
Keep asking.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As I said, Mr. Speaker, there are investigations underway to find out who is responsible, what rules were broken, and what the consequences should be for those involved. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The people involved are taxpayers who can't pay their bills anymore, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the government has access to all the documents. Does he think we believe he doesn't know how much that cost? How much Arrive scam cost?
He doesn't know how much his own app costs. He has the power to call for any document he wants from the government. So either he's covering it up, he's incompetent, or worse. Which is it?
All of it. All of the above.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are ongoing investigations, both internal and external, that are following up on exactly how this unacceptable situation happened. We received the Auditor General's report last week. We are following up, and we have been following up on this for months already, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to make sure that anyone who broke the rules faces consequences.
Good, you broke the rules. You're going to face consequences, boy?
Service and procurement are changed. This is something we are taking very seriously, as we must.
Hey, punk, you gonna take your consequences?
La pandémie, well, the pandemic is a pretty good excuse, but it doesn't exempt the government from requirements. We know the Prime Minister is ultimately responsible, and he hasn't conducted a specific investigation into the Arrive scam and the $60 million. Now, has the Prime Minister taken any steps to recover the money that was spent inappropriately and bring it back into the public coffers?
Are you kidding? We went to his friends.
Unacceptable situation. Right, Honourable
He's
Prime
not going to take it back from his friends.
Mr. Speaker, in answering a previous question, I explained that processes were triggered months ago in connection with these contracts where the rules weren't followed or the processes weren't followed properly. So this has been underway for a number of months. We are making sure that despite the fact that there was a pandemic and we had to act quickly, that does not excuse the fact that contracts were awarded improperly and breaking the rules, and that is why there is an investigation and why there will be consequences. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister admits in a roundabout kind of way that there was misuse of public money by CBSA. Did he at least contemplate firing the current administration and putting the CBSA temporarily under some sort of custodianship? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the investigations unfolded internally, there have already been consequences for some of those involved. I can't talk about that because some of the processes are not yet complete, but I can reassure people that concrete steps have been taken. There have already been consequences, but there will be more.
Yes, I agree
as the authorities
with Alice. Yes,
complete their
the
work.
blockhead, the chief blockhead is
doing
doing well today. And I'm surprised, but I'll give him credit.
Common Sense Conservative Party is focused on cutting taxes, building housing, fixing the budget, and stopping crime. Meanwhile, the radical Minister of the Environment and this Prime Minister has launched a war on cars. He said our government has decided to no longer invest in new road infrastructure.
There it is.
How does he think people living in the regions are going to get to work? On their bikes?
There it is. Somebody asked the question.
Mr. Speaker, the minister clarified his comments. The fact is that our approach when it comes to highway infrastructure has not changed. Since 2015, we've invested billions in roadways, whether it's bridges, ports, or highways. We will continue to invest in infrastructure all across Canada. Our approach hasn't changed, but the Conservative approach hasn't changed either.
So what did the Thunderhead say otherwise?
They voted against our investments in bridges,
oh, get off with your
and
look
rural communities
look at pitiful
and major
Guilbeault
cities.
sitting over there.
Conservatives have always voted against the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, he didn't clarify. He added to his comments. The radical minister, said that the type of project the Liberal government would block would be like the third link for people in the greater Quebec City area. People need that third link. People need their cars when they live in rural areas. But this Prime Minister wants to get in their way. Why is he waging war against cars instead of helping people get to work?
He's in no mind.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure Quebecers will be happy to hear that the Conservative Party is once again in favor of the third link. The fact is that our government's approach when it comes to investing in transportation, transit, and roads hasn't changed since 2015.
Hasn't changed.
The new Samuel Champlain Bridge is one example.
Madman Guilbeault just said this week that it had changed drastically.
We will always invest in infrastructure, and apparently the Conservative Party will always be there to vote against our investments in infrastructure.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This guy is so pathetic. He's not
Tax
even.
Minister has done it again. This time, he's saying that the federal government is not going to support any new road construction. I quote, "Our government has made the decision to stop investing in new road infrastructure."
There it is.
End quote. So he believes that people in Yukon or rural Alberta or rural Newfoundland will have to get to work riding a bicycle. Mr. Speaker, why should those people have to pay taxes for infrastructure when they can't possibly use the tramways and the bicycles that he's funding?
What a bunch of clowns these Liberals are.
A couple of months ago,
Just a bunch of clowns.
To all members that we should be using certain adjectives in regards to particular members of parliament, to individual members of parliament. So like the word crazy is not a word that we should be using in this.
But it's an accurate description of Guilbeault. He is crazy.
direction to members. So I'm going to ask members, please, from now on, to exercise, to work within the boundaries of parliamentary language. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Fergus,
Mr.
sit down.
Speaker, the Minister has already clarified his remarks. Our government's approach to investing in
He
trade
hasn't
corridors
clarified
and
his
roads that
remarks.
Canadians rely on
Damage
has not
control is
changed
all he
since
did.
2015. We will continue to step up, and we got projects like the Samuel de Champlain Bridge in Montreal across the finish line, and we're going to get others like the Gordie Howe Bridge built. We're going to continue to invest in infrastructures. But what also hasn't changed is the Conservative Party's opposition to investments in roads, in communities, in bridges, in ports, right across the country as we grow the economy, because all the Conservative leader is offering is cuts, cuts, cuts.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, first, this radical minister is bringing in a 61 cent a litre carbon tax on people who are committing the crime of driving to work or operating their farms. Then he wants to ban people from using vehicles that are necessary in our climate. And now he says he's going to ban all federal funding for future roads. Our government has made the decision to stop investing in new road infrastructure. Will the Prime Minister condemn these crazy comments?
Oh, we can't be crazy, Greg.
Prime Minister.
Once again, the minister has clarified his remarks. Our approach to infrastructure continues to be one of investing in the future for Canadians.
Look at that simpering clown Guilbeault. He won't even look up. He's so goddamn
new interchanges on Highway 101 and 103 in Nova Scotia, and twinning the
He is a pathetic excuse for a human being and the cabinet.
Municipalities through the Community Building Fund. Just in Ontario, this means almost 2,900 projects for local roads and bridges. What has not changed as well is the Conservative Party's opposition to investing in future investing.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Imbecile.
Netanyahu's bombing of Rafah and potential ground incursion will be a slaughter. Thousands of innocent Palestinians will die. The Liberals act as if they're concerned, but they authorize $28.5 million in new military exports to Netanyahu. The Prime Minister has the power and the responsibility to protect civilians. When will the Prime Minister stop selling arms to Netanyahu?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, a military operation in Rafah would have catastrophic consequences. Over half of Gaza's population is taking refuge in the area, including many Canadians and their families.
Read your script, Justin.
Simply nowhere else for civilians to go. Protecting civilians is paramount. A sustainable ceasefire is urgently needed. Hamas must lay down its arms and release all hostages immediately. The only possible path forward towards peace is a two-state solution. We've told this directly to Prime Minister Netanyahu and other regional partners, and we have not emitted any new export permits since October 7th.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Prime Minister has an obligation to back up his words with actions. With kids going online, we know they risk being exposed to harmful content, sexual extortion, and harassment. In the last election, the Prime Minister promised legislation to hold those platforms accountable.
Here's the Online Safety Act coming from Trudeau's buddy boy.
It's been 814 days, and still nothing's happened. Children are being hurt.
Oh, you want more censorship? Oh, there he goes, setting him up.
Protecting web giants and start protecting kids.
Go to hell, you piece of
Right
crap.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite knows well that we have been working very, very closely with communities, with individuals, with experts to move forward on online harms legislation that is going to do the right job of protecting our kids from all range of harms that they face online. This is something that we have taken very, very seriously, but it's also something that we've listened on and we've heard, particularly from minority or marginalized communities, that we need to get it exactly right. And that's why we have taken the time. This is something that the leader knows full well, but we're going to continue to do the right work to protect our kids.
The Honourable Member from Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Sexual and reproductive health touches all aspects of human health and well-being. It affects
Oh my
physical
God, I
and
can't believe
mental
Hetty
health.
Fry is
It
still
impacts social
walking.
participation. It ensures healthy reproductive organs, family planning, pre- and postnatal care, delivery of healthy babies, and safe abortion. There's a push globally to limit access to the full range of sexual and reproductive health care. This week, 2 female MPs were stopped from raising this issue in Parliament. Since it is SRHR week globally, can the Prime Minister reaffirm the government's position on this human rights issue?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Vancouver Centre for her tireless advocacy on women's issues. This week, I'm proud to reaffirm our government's unwavering commitment to defending Canadians' reproductive rights through historic investments and work with grassroots organizers. But we've seen just this week, over the past 2 days, that the threat to reproductive freedom is alive and well in Canada, even in this chamber. The shameful behavior of Conservative MPs in shutting down women in this House leaves Canadians wondering what that party is so afraid of. I call on Conservative MPs to stand up for women's rights.
Oh, get off. Just get off the stage, you little pathetic fool.
Our common sense plan acts as the tax, builds the homes, fixes the budgets, stops the crime. Prime Minister can't defend his policy, so he's changing the name. People hate the carbon tax because 60% more pay more into it than they get back in his phony rebates. So today he announced a costly rebranding of the hated carbon tax. My question for him is, how much did he spend on consultants in order to come up with the new name, and was it GC Strategies that he hired?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition doesn't even understand the consequences of the cuts he's proposing left, right, and centre. He proposes to take away the carbon price rebate, the Canada carbon rebate from millions of Canadian families across the country.
Canada price rebate. What an idiot.
To continue to deliver more money to 8 out of 10 Canadian families in 4 checks over the course of the year that puts cash in their pockets while we fight climate change. We're seeing reduction in emissions that Canada is leading on. We're also moving forward on growing the economy and supporting Canadians.
And it makes no difference if we did.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He couldn't even get the new name of the carbon tax right. It's only 3 words. The Prime Minister should learn that we can't improve life by slogans alone, Mr. Speaker. That's right. So that's why we propose the facts. I have here a distributional analysis of the federal fuel charge by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, which shows that 60% of Canadians pay more in taxes than they get back in his phony rebates. Why won't he follow the facts and axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He couldn't even get the name right.
Wants to talk about facts. The Canada carbon rebate will deliver $1,800 in Alberta to an average family of 4, $1,200 in Manitoba, $1,120 in Ontario for your family of 4, $1,500 in Saskatchewan, $760 in New Brunswick, $824 in Nova Scotia, $880 in PEI, and $1,192
He's been waiting all afternoon to read that script.
To a family of 4. 8 out of 10 families across the country get more money out of the Canada carbon rebate.
Canada carbon rebate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing.
He's not worth the time of
doubled
day.
in price since the Prime Minister was elected. Today on rent.ca, we found out that rent has hit a new record in January. Monthly rent hit the record of $2,196 per month. That is an increase of 10% as compared with last year. When will he understand that he needs to fund housing rather than funding bureaucracy? Because that's not going to fix the housing crisis. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition demonstrates time and time again that he does not even understand the programs that he intends to cut. We have a housing accelerator fund, and through that fund, we're investing in municipalities' capacity to build more homes faster. We are also increasing densification and making changes to zoning. We are accelerating permits, building permits. We are creating more opportunities for more units to be built. But the Leader of the Opposition refuses to understand that that is how we are going to solve the housing crisis. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Well, let's talk about this program then. Since it was created 2 years ago, rent has increased across the country. Yesterday, in committee, we asked the Housing Minister how many units have been built through the Accelerator Fund. The answer, 0. The Minister said the program is not building specific homes. Those are the Minister's words. So, Mr. Speaker, if it costs $4 billion to not build a single home, how much would it cost to build just one home? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has just shown us that he does not even understand the programs that he wants to cut. Yes, we invested $4 billion in municipalities throughout Canada in order to increase densification and accelerate home building. We're investing to cut red tape. We're investing to build more homes faster, and that's exactly what we're doing. We are currently creating opportunities. 500,000 homes will be created over the next year, but this opposition leader wants to cut because all he knows how to do is cut and slash. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Canada Nuclear Safety Commission. The Commission,
it's just incredible to me how Trudeau thinks changing the name of a tax is going to make it more palatable for anybody. But this guy is just so incredibly stupid.
And it's basically right beside the Ottawa River. Many people are very worried, including leaders of Anishinaabe groups who are here today. Does the Prime Minister feel that nuclear waste is dangerous? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, protecting the health and safety of Canadians and of the environment is a total priority for this government. The decision to authorize the facility was made by the Canada Nuclear Safety Commission, which is an independent organization that only approves projects after assessing them and ensuring that they're safe for Canadians and their health. And of course, they only grant approvals after consulting relevant groups and Indigenous groups as well. The Minister of Natural Resources does not have any say in the CNSC's decisions. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Yes, but the Anishinaabe Nation has concluded with full certainty that it is not safe. The nation of Quebec has also concluded with absolute certainty that this is an unsafe project. So is the Prime Minister only listening to nuclear lobbyists, or is he only listening to the increasingly small Liberal lobbies? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as we know very well, as we all know, the Canada Nuclear Safety Commission is a scientific and independent organization. They conduct thorough investigations to ensure that nuclear facilities are safe. They communicate with and consult involved communities, and they ensure the safety of Canadians and of the environment. This is not a political decision, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we trust our experts. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled as he builds bureaucracies that block homes. In January, according to data out today, rent was up 10% year over year to $2,196. An astonishing increase in a very short time. In fact, it's up about 20% in the last 2 years alone, and it's accelerating ever since he named his incompetent housing minister. Will the Prime Minister follow our common sense plan to cut the bureaucracy and build the homes?
The
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that cuts from the Conservative leader wouldn't get more homes built. If he was really concerned about rents, he would line behind us and support the removal of the GST on new apartment constructions. That's something they actually voted against, Mr. Speaker. We know that unlocking greater supply of housing, including with purpose-built apartment buildings across the country, is a way of bringing down rents for people. That's a concrete solution that we've put forward that the Conservative chose to vote against for political gain and for political reasons. We're going to continue to be there to do the hard work of delivering for Canadians while he relies on catchy slogans and
keeps repeating the same stupid lines. Delivering for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We were the ones that proposed taking the tax off home building, Mr. Speaker. The one good idea that he finally copied, but he talks about slogans. One is the Housing Accelerator Fund, the $4 billion program that was supposed to speed up housing. We asked the housing minister yesterday in committee how many homes it had completed. The answer is zero, nada, nothing. His quote, "It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes." Mr. Speaker, if it cost $4 billion to build 0 homes, how much would it cost to build 1?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, we have the clear proof that the Leader of the Opposition doesn't even understand the proposals that he's counting on cutting, that he's promising to cut from Canadians. The Housing Accelerator Fund is about investing in municipalities across the country to change the frame around which they build homes faster. It involves rapidly eliminating red tape. It involves increasing densification, changing zoning, making sure we can unlock far more houses construction than any federal government could build on its own. This is the approach that we're taking, and it's working, Mr. Speaker.
Obviously, it's not.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This guy is so dense.
35 photo ops, 1 minister, 0 homes. He not only says the program doesn't build homes, he says it doesn't lead to the construction of homes. He couldn't point to one development that had actually been completed. They've been in power for 8 years and they can't get anything built. When will they get the bureaucracy out of and the taxes out of the way so that we can build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the only tool that the Leader of the Conservative Party has put forward is cutting programs in order to somehow create more homes. What we're actually doing is investing in partnership with municipalities to eliminate red tape, to accelerate the construction of homes, to increase densification, to change zoning so that more houses can
increase
be built.
Densification now.
500,000 new homes are being facilitated by the Housing Accelerator Fund right across the country.
He's going to increase
densification. Over the
densification.
past months, construction is already underway across the country.
The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Mr. Speaker, communities across Canada are gathering to observe.
Well, it's that time of day again for the softball.
and
Oh, Trudeau's been pretty
people who have
well
gone
savage
missing
today.
or have been
I must
murdered.
say, he looked
Mr.
pretty
Speaker,
stupid most of the time,
women
but he
in
always
my
does look
riding,
pretty stupid. But
Indigenous
today,
women
he really
are
looked
still
pathetic.
afraid to leave their communities at night.
I am just
This year
flabbergasted at
marks the
times of
5th
how
anniversary
he
of
just
the final report of the
evades
National
reality
Inquiry.
and responsibility constantly.
Can the Prime Minister provide an update on efforts to implement the calls to action outlined in the report? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No.
I thank the member for Pontiac for her question and for her hard work. The crisis of Indigenous women, girls, and
Yeah, I'm
two-spirited
sure you
people
bellow
who
at
have
her in
gone
the
missing or
private
been
hours.
murdered is ongoing in our
Because
country.
you're a real
Since
jerk
2015,
from
there has been
the
a national
testimony of
inquiry. We
every
launched that in
female
2015. The
MP
Conservatives
I've
refused
ever
to launch it, though.
heard.
Now we have a clear action plan. Thanks to that action plan, there is increased help for those fleeing violence. We also created a red alert to help us find disappeared Indigenous people. I'd like to thank all those who are participating in memorial walks in their communities.
Prime Minister is not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder he's unleashed in our streets.
Well, that's the best one you've
signed
come
on
up
the
with
NDP
so far.
government in BC to decriminalize crack, heroin, and other hard drugs, and allowed for drug injection sites in Richmond. Courageous and patriotic Canadians of Chinese origin rose up to speak out and protect their kids and were treated to racial slurs by NDP radical activists telling them to go back where they came from. Will the Prime Minister reject this liberal racism and ban hard drugs so we can stop the crime?
Sick of their supervised injection sites. Yeah.
The impact of the toxic drug and overdose crisis on our communities is absolutely devastating. We're using every tool at our disposal to work with partners to end this national public health crisis. Unlike the opposition, we're following an evidence-based approach while working in partnership with stakeholders, experts, and people.
You're getting everybody addicted to drugs. That's what you're doing. Overdose levels have never been higher.
We've approached this from both the public health
That's how it's working.
Perspective, hand in hand with the BC government in this case.
We got dope.
The honorable leader of the opposition.
He wouldn't condemn the racial slurs, but he did issue a vicious condemnation of his own record. Let me quote what he said about life in Canada after 8 years of his prime ministership, and I quote, "Yeah, grocery bills suck. Rent sucks. Mortgage renegotiations. Oh my God, how are we going to deal with it?" Mr. Speaker, this is life after 8 years. What is his slogan going to be in the next election? Vote for me and life will still suck?
Make Canada suck again. Yeah.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Make Canada suck again.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
That'll be the Liberal slogan.
Did he just say, vote for me?
Keep Canada sucking.
I think that's what he just said. The reality is we have put forward smart, responsible solutions to fight climate change and grow the economy, to lift over 500,000 kids out of poverty, to invest in the kind of economy of the future, the good careers, whether it's in zero-emission vehicles, whether it's in mining or forestry, whether it's in advanced manufacturing. We'll continue to bring more women into the workforce with initiatives like childcare. We're moving forward on dental care, which the Conservatives voted against for seniors and young people. We're going to be there to invest in a better future for Canadians every single day.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
That's cool.
Actually spoke the truth, maybe by accident, by saying that after 8 years, life sucks for the very middle class of those working hard to join it, to whom he promised so much. He taxed their grocery bills with a quadrupling carbon tax. He doubled housing costs after promising to lower them. He's unleashed a crime wave across the country. Now that he admits that life sucks under his leadership, why won't he accept our common sense plan to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
He's a particularly weak man today.
Canadians understand that these are complicated times and that governments need to step up with real solutions. Responsible leadership is about recognizing the challenges people are facing and putting forward solutions.
You've never exercised responsible leadership, ever.
500,000 homes built over the coming years, whether it's childcare that is saving thousands of dollars for families right across the country as we help more women get into the workforce, whether it's fighting climate change in a way that puts more money into people's pockets and builds stronger careers for the future. These are the solutions we're putting forward. He's doing nothing but attack.
The honourable member from Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want access to healthcare system and services that allow them and their family and loved ones to get the care they need when they need it. While the Conservative voted against.
If you think they're incompetent in the front row, this is the chance for the backbenchers to show you how bad they can be too.
Investing more than $3.1 billion over the next 3 years. Can the Prime Minister please update the House on the Working Together Agreement and how they will
Who knows? He could be in cabinet next week too.
And the impact on the lives of the Canadians.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question and his service to his constituents. These specifically tailored agreements will address unique healthcare challenges faced by provinces and territories. Thanks to this federal funding, Ontario will add hundreds of new family physicians and nurse practitioners, expand healthcare education programs, remove barriers to foreign credential recognition, and open 5 new youth wellness hubs to improve access to mental health services. Unlike the Conservative Party, who's too busy fighting for a privatized healthcare system, we will keep making bold investments and work with the provinces and territories to deliver real
The honourable member from Victoria.
His scripts are
Mr. Speaker,
consistently
Canadians
too long.
are worried about the climate crisis, and we know that coal is the dirtiest
No,
source
we're
of
not.
electricity,
We're not worried.
producing more emissions
There's
than
no
any
crisis.
other fossil fuel.
I'm worried about the
Liberals
taxation
promised to
crisis, the free
ban
speech
thermal
crisis,
coal
the
exports.
euthanasia
But
crisis.
under the
I
Liberals,
could go on,
exports have more than
but I'm not worried
tripled.
about any climate
More
crisis.
broken
And
promises.
I know
They have
none of my
no plan to
viewers
phase
are,
it out,
and no
plan
ordinary
to support
Canadians lose
workers.
any sleep over
As
your
Canadians
goddamn
across
climate
the country
crisis.
are facing
So
extreme
shut up.
weather. Will the Prime Minister end thermal coal exports?
Hear, hear. The Right
These
Honourable
people
Prime
just-
Minister.
Speaker, yes. Phasing out coal from the electricity sector is the single most important climate action any country can take. We're committed to ending thermal coal exports by 2030, along with an end to coal-powered electricity generation. The Minister of the Environment is actively working on achieving these targets, and we'll have an update in due course.
L'honorable député de Richmond.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, after question period, all MPs will have the opportunity to vote on Bill C-273 to repeal Section 43 of the Criminal Code, which allows an adult to use corporal punishment on a child for supposedly educational purposes. Over 65 countries around the world have taken this step, and 27 are in the process of doing so. The UN Committee for the Protection of Children has asked for this. The Call to Action number 6 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls for this, and so does the Canadian Medical Association. Can the Prime Minister confirm that his government will support this initiative in order to protect our children? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his question. This matter is important to all of us, and I would like to reassure everyone that our government is committed to protecting children and their physical safety. All children everywhere in Canada. Thus, we will support C-273 and its goal to protect children from violence and abuse. We look forward to hearing experts speak about this matter in committee. This legislation is very important, and in a few moments, we will support it.
Cela nous amène à la fin de la période.
This brings us to the end of question
Wow.
period.
Okay.
I recognize on a point of order the honourable
Let's
member
just
for
hear the
Vaughan
point of order.
Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There have been discussions amongst the parties, and if you seek it, I think you will find unanimous consent to adopt the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order or usual practice of the House, Bill S-1001, an act to amalgamate the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation of Ottawa and the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation for the Diocese of Alexandria, Cornwall.
All right, that's enough of that. Well, that was one of the most exciting question periods I've seen in a long time. And I've seen many question periods over the years. And that was great. Pierre Poilievre is really a master of the forum. Like I say, I'm not in Pierre's pocket. I am not telling you to necessarily support Pierre. I know there's at least one other alternative out there, but he was bang on today. And this was really good. His comeback to what WTF was really good. And he was bang on all day. And it was entertaining, but it was nice to see Trudeau scrambling. He didn't leave after 4 or 5 minutes. That's why he leaves after 4 or 5 minutes, because he looks dumber and dumber as the program goes on. But he really looked pathetic today. I think we can all agree Trudeau looked pathetic and energizes us to know that he must go. It is time that Trudeau leave, that he resign. Now, the NDP feigned opposition today. They feigned outrage over things that they have supported. They prop up this Liberal government faithfully every day, and it's time to hold them accountable to and responsible for this horrid Liberal Trudeau government that continues to persecute Canadians, punish Canadians. Okay. So we are going to continue to watch this week because this ad scam, or did I call it ad scam? I'm sorry, my age is telling. Arrive scam, the Arrive Can scandal, if you will, is continuing to dominate the news, and it is horrific. Now I have to find out right now whether or not this 250 million is the real price tag for this, because it's not clear to me after listening to question period whether it's still 60 million or it's 250 million or it's 250 million plus 60 million. I really want to look into this and find out, or if it's 250 million plus this 80,000. It's a Jagmeet Singh actually said it was that. So I want to find out, and we'll get more information. If you have the time, please watch my interview with Neil Oliver. He is a brilliant mind, and he says things so incredibly accurately, succinctly, and eloquently. And I encourage you to watch part 1 from yesterday or part 2, which will be airing in about an hour or so, an hour and a half. And we'll be back again tomorrow with more question period. Thanks for watching today. It has really been a pleasure being with you. And I will continue to fight for you, fight for truth, for free speech, and for the right. Thank you. God bless.